Aloha, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Faith and Family First. I'm your host, Eva Andrade. I'm here with Marcus Oshiro, and we're going to dive, unfortunately for some of you, we're diving back into politics. We're going to be talking a little bit about the budget. We're going to be talking about the special session that could be coming up, and as always, encouraging you to stay plugged in to raise your voice for the faith community. So let's chat about that. Marcus, we're going to start with a bet.
Okay.
Let's start with a bet.
Yeah. You go.
Go. So, is there going to be a special session or not?
Okay.
So
here we are, end of May.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wager. How much you would wait?
$5.
$5. Okay.
$5.
All right. So I get $5 if there's no special session, and you get the $5 if there is a special session. That's how sure you are.
I'm sure there's going to be a special session. I'm going to bet you $5. I think that's Abraham Lincoln on that bill. $5.
You're betting an Abe.
I'm betting
That's
an
how
Abe.
strong. That's
Yeah.
how strong you
A
are.
Lincoln
Sure, we're going to
Abe
do this.
bill.
Oh,
$5. There's going to be a special session. Let me tell you why, real quickly.
Yeah.
I think the United States Senate, Congress is going to pass a budget with some significant cuts into programs regarding health, human services, basic programs, maybe in the area of Medicare, Medicaid, health-related grants that go to community health centers, some limitations, or maybe some food stamp programs or aid to family with dependent children programs, what we call the welfare programs. I think they're going to be cuts. And I think because of that, the Hawaii State Legislature will go into a special session. And I believe, number two, they will call themselves into a special session by having 2/3 of their membership in the House and Senate inform the Speaker and Senate President that they want to go into a special session. I think that's what's going to happen this year.
And this is actually a perfect timing for us to have this discussion because there's a couple of things that have happened that we haven't talked about yet. We were going to talk about it a couple of shows ago. We forgot about it. But we did a show where we talked about the Hawai'i budget.
Yes.
And at the very end, you made a very small comment about the shakeup in the finance leadership. And so we should actually start with that. I mean, so what happened? Because we had a finance chair in the House that made it through this session, but there's been a change. So let's chat about that.
Yeah, the big change was that several weeks ago, maybe 4 days after the session ended, there was an abrupt change of the chairmanship of the House Finance Committee.
Now, was it anticipated or was this totally out of the blue?
I don't think it was anticipated. What I gather from most people in the Square building down there, it was a surprise. I think it was a surprise to Finance Chairman Yamashita. I don't think he was anticipating or contemplating that he would be removed as a finance chair. And again, the Finance Committee chairs, House Finance Committee, Senate Ways and Means, are two of the most powerful positions in the legislature. So out of 76 of them, two of the most powerful, House Finance Chair, Senate Ways and Means. So that change at that point in time, after the budget is done, after the legislature is over, is a major change, a major shift to remove and replace it with a much younger legislator. I believe it was Representative Chris Todd. And I think he's from Hawaii Island, Hilo, in fact. And he may have been there for maybe 10 years or so. Chair Yamashita, on the other hand, had been there for almost 22 years. So a lot more experience, because I also served with him. So it's a big change.
So how do you think that's going to affect Hawaii's budget moving forward?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see because, again, Chairman Todd, now Chair Todd of the Finance Committee, is going to be new to the chairmanship itself. And then he has the additional responsibility of figuring it out going forward when there's additional cuts being made to the state's budgets and the federal cuts upon that. Fortunately, we learned several weeks ago that the state of Hawaii received an additional $700 million based upon a lawsuit and settlement by some pharmaceutical companies, which was not anticipated, not expected. So that gives us, gives them some cushion, and some additional revenues to kind of make ends meet and patch the holes in the budget. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because projected right now is that we're going to be losing maybe $300 to $400 million next fiscal year.
Oh no! Whenever there's going to be a loss in revenue, two things come up. What are those two things? Recreational marijuana and gambling.
I didn't see it. I'm glad you did.
Oh my God. Okay, we won't go there because everyone's like, they're sick of hearing us talk about that.
Yeah.
But it goes to the budget.
Yeah,
That's the reason we have the discussion.
Yeah, I think, truth be told, I think the legislators, some of them truly, honestly believe that that's the magic bullet, that's the panacea that's going to address all the ills of our budget shortfalls. What they fail to appreciate, I'm going to be honest, what they fail to appreciate is that in 2024, they enacted probably one of the most widespread tax reductions in the history of the state of Hawaii, which is going to be affecting us almost $1 billion every year for the next 5 to 7 years.
You and I are going to continue this conversation because the budget, unfortunately, is not going to go away. So we're going to make a promise to you guys that we're going to try very hard to make the budget discussions interesting. And if Marcus has to tap dance, that's what he's going to do because we want you to stay plugged in because budget discussion can make your eyes glaze over, but it's really important that we have the discussion on what the budget entails and how it's going to affect us.
Yeah.
We're all going to be affected.
Yeah. So already hardwired into the projections going forward next 5 or 6 years is this $1 billion a year savings, tax savings to the taxpayers. But the other side of the coin is the loss of revenues from the expenditure side of the equation, which goes to programs for housing, education, human services, you name it, government services are going to be lessened by about $1 billion a year.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So first call to action. If you live on the Big Island, this is your opportunity to build relationship with the new chair of the House Finance, which is Representative Holt.
No, Chris Todd.
I'm Chris Todd. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's right. Holt. Where did I get Holt from?
Because he's the guy that's pushing the gaming bill.
Oh, see, that money is all in there. So thank you. Thank you for, yeah. So,
yeah, he's from Chinatown, Honolulu.
Chinatown.
Okay.
No, okay. So Big Island
How
people.
Interesting. Yeah, Chinatown, yeah.
Gambling. No, gambling. Oh, my gosh. So if you live on the Big Island, this is your opportunity because as we tell you, when you're building a relationship with your legislator, you're going to have an opportunity to really have some discussions with the new finance chair because that's his backyard. So that's your first call to action.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk briefly because there's no way we could do a show in half an hour on the federal budget, but we'll just briefly talk about it. So the one big beautiful bill, which I know people are like, why do they keep saying that? Because that's what he called it. President Trump calls this One Big Beautiful Bill Act. That's the name of the bill. It is H.R. 1. And when I say it passed the House, I'm talking squeaky, squeak, 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 squeak. It was 216 to 214. Squeak. It squeaked by. And okay. And just before we jump into the conversation, I got to tell you that what I'm noticing on both sides of the aisle is people are using talking points. Why it's a good bill, why it's a bad bill, right? I'm seeing talking points, both sides.
Yeah.
So I keep asking the people that are bringing up the talking points, have you read the bill? And almost without fail, no. The bill is over 1,000 pages long.
Yeah. they're probably not going to read the bill. They're probably going to read a summary, executive summary of the bill, and they're probably going to have their staff go and look through the weeds and the actual components of the bill that may be referencing previous previous measures, previous enactments.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to see some letters and numbers and paragraphs there,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not going to actually understand some of the moving parts of the expenditures and the cuts going on. So it really depends upon the Office of Budget and Management to come out with,
Mm-hmm.
really articulated points on the budget. But there are some big areas are going to be cuts, and that's going to be those areas we talked about maybe last time: Medicare,
Mm-hmm.
Medicaid, aid to family dependent children,
Mm-hmm.
food stamps,
Yeah.
health and human services,
Yep. I made notes on some of
grants.
this so that if people want to go and look at some of these
Yeah,
areas, because I didn't read the whole bill, Marcus, but I did peruse it. Like I did go
yeah,
through all, and so these are the things that stuck out to me. Okay. So in the area of faith and religious liberty, right? The bill is going to ban Medicaid and CHIP from covering gender affirming care for individuals of all ages, including hormone therapy and surgeries. And if you want to check this out, this is under H.R. 1, Title 2, Subtitle A, Section 21001. So I noticed
right,
that in
right.
there. It's going to restrict Medicaid funding to abortion providers. This is going to it's going to prevent that funding from going to clinics that provide abortions, except in the cases of rape, incest, or danger to the mother's life.
I think that's an expansion of the current policy. Yeah.
Yep, yep. And so if somebody wants to look that one up, it's under HR 1, Title 2, Subtitle A, Section
Mm-hmm,
21002.
mm-hmm.
Okay, it's going to limit federal enforcement of certain court orders, which is interesting. So the bill includes a provision preventing federal courts, Marcus, you're going to find this interesting, from using appropriated funds to enforce findings of contempt of court for non-compliance with certain injunctions potentially affecting religious organizations.
Okay, we're gonna have to put a little pin there. Beep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can do a little bit more research.
No, on that one there, it's a little interesting because I know that this administration, the current Trump administration, is really exerting its executive powers. We have three branches of government: legislative, judicial, executive. But this is the first time I can recall in all my years of paying attention to politics, both nationally and locally, that the chief executive is really grabbing the reins of authority as the chief executive and expanding it or pushing to expand it way more than any other president has ever done.
Mm.
And so at some point in time, they're going to get into a clash with the judicial branch and legislative branch. But this particular point regarding the limitations upon the judicial branch is already teeing up for some resolution by the United States Supreme Court.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so
And there are other measures like that coming through. And I think by plan and design, this president is this is his forte, or this is going to be his decision to challenge the other two branches.
this is good. So if anybody wants to check, and I'm not an attorney, and this was just my reading
Oh,
through.
okay.
So if people want
Yeah.
to check that out, that's in HR 1, Title 10, Section 10001. Okay, so I'll mark
Okay.
that and we'll
Yeah.
come back to that.
Yeah.
Okay, on the family values, it enhances the child tax credit. Now, as I mentioned this, I want to be clear that all I'm doing is making notes of certain areas. I'm not saying whether it's a good thing necessarily or a bad thing. It's just the notes that I noticed in areas that we track, right? So this would increase child tax credit to 2,500 through 2028 and then revert to 2,000 after, providing financial relief to families. And that's HR 1, Title 1, Subtitle A, Section 110004.
That's a great idea. I
That's
think that's a great idea that supports families, that
yeah.
support, children, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this one's interesting too. So it's introducing Make America Great Again savings accounts for newborns. So this one's going to establish a $1,000 savings account for children born between 2024. So your little brother, and my new great granddaughter is going to be included. And so between 2024 and 2028, encouraging long-term financial planning for families. And that's HR 1, Title 1, Subtitle B, Section 12001.
I think it's a great idea. It's going to affect the budget itself, expenditures and revenues, but it's a great idea. Any of the other states can do that on their own too now. This is a federal program, but states can mirror it on their own.
And this is just, it's temporary, right? It's just like from 2024 to 2028. So there's time for them to do a little bit more of a permanent plan.
Yeah, but anytime if you give something good, it's hard to take it away later.
I know, that's what I mean. So this is a good
And he's not
thing.
going to be around, right, in 2028?
No, well, people are saying he's going to a third term,
Right,
so I don't know. Well,
yeah,
that's a whole nother show.
That's a whole nother show, yeah.
Okay, so I want to kind of get through these because I know we want to talk about special session. But so how about the expansion of education savings accounts, right? So it's going to allow 529 education saving plan to cover homeschooling expenses, supporting parental choice in education. And this is HR 1, Title 3, Subtitle C, Section 31002.
Kanaloa.
I thought you were going to say ole.
No, Kanaloa.
Okay.
That home,
That's
schooling
good
thing.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so now here's where we're getting into some of the stuff that may be controversial to our listeners. So, under stewardship, accountability, and national principles, it's going to impose work requirements for Medicaid recipients. So this is able-bodied adults without dependents to meet work requirements to receive Medicaid benefits, promoting self-sufficiency, and that's HR 1, Title 2, Subtitle A, Section 21003.
I have mixed feelings about that. That this is not a new idea. That's been discussed and debated before. The question is whether or not in that particular state there are adequate jobs available for these people. They're adequately skilled, or they need to get additional training to be qualified, and about whether or not they'll be retained in those jobs in the longer term. So those are some of the issues that come up, and people, wanted to make sure that you don't impose that upon those who might be intellectually or physically disabled.
Oh, I have some disabled friends that are very upset.
Yeah.
Very. So,
Right. So,
sometimes it's easy for us to look from our perfect lens into what we're looking at, but then to see it through the lens of someone who's actually going to be affected by it, that's a whole new
because there's a
ballgame.
variable of the employer,
Yeah.
and they're making those choices, those screening and those
Yeah,
devices
yeah.
also. So, you got to be careful on
It's
this.
just something to think about for sure. So there's some funding for border security, 70 billion for border security measures, including barriers, surveillance, and personnel. And this is obviously to protect family from illegal activities, right? So this is under HR 1, Title 4, Subtitle A, Section 41001.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I now this is all I'm just doing subheadings
but-
of this. People would have to read to see exactly what they're
but
trying to
we want to protect our own borders here
Right.
in Hawaii, right? I mean, we're part of the United States, but we're somewhat protective.
My dad got a big fence around our yard
Somewhat
up there.
provincial about who should come in and
That's
who
right.
wouldn't want coming in, right?
That's
So
right.
let's be honest about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so there is a repeal of certain environmental regulations that have some people up in arms. So there's a rolling back of some specific green energy tax credits, regulations, focusing on economic growth and energy affordability for families. And that's HR 1, Title 5, sorry. No, Title 4. Subtitle B, sections 51001 up to 51005. Okay, and then, of course, the last one that kind of stuck out to me was the reformation of student loan programs. So this is going to end federal direct subsidized loans for undergraduates and eliminates the Secretary of Education's authority to regulate based on gainful employment, promoting fiscal responsibility. And that's HR 1, Title 3, Subtitle B, Sections 31001 to 31004. So those are just some of the things in the 1,000 plus budget.
Right.
Okay, so that's it's going to now cross over to the Senate. The
Yes.
Senate is going to do what the Senate's going to do. So even though it passed the House, we're not looking at a final budget yet. So we're going to have to stay kind of tuned into that. But because of some of these cuts, our legislature now, according to your bet at the beginning of the
I
show,
did bet you $5.
yes, you did, because some of the cuts are freaking people out, and they're like, "This is bad, and we need to be ready." And so, our legislators are talking about having a special session. So now, why don't you walk us through what a special session would look like?
Okay, a special session is constantly allowed by two ways. The governor can call the legislature into a special session, or the legislature themselves, by 2/3 vote in both House and Senate, can call themselves in. So in the Senate, 17 members can let the Senate president know we want to go into a special session. Same with the House, 34 members of the 51 can say, Madam Speaker, we want to go into a special session. So that's the first step. The second step is, in the normal course, is to decide what are the issues, what are the measures that are going to be considered, because we don't want to go into a regular session when you have thousands of bills floating around. So a very narrow focus and intention.
So they can't, once they decide what those issues are, it's not like during that special session they could just pull something out of a hat. Or
Well,
could they?
Well, when you say pull something out of a hat, they can. It's like any other session, but there's rules in place, there's procedures in place that's agreed upon within the body itself. But it does mean that any and all people who have an interest in the legislature, the members themselves, can put in proposals. And I haven't seen that, but theoretically, under the rules, under the Constitution, I can put in a bill of anything because it's a session. And I have that right under the Constitution.
So just because they say they're going to only be talking about budget issues,
Right.
people still need to pay attention to what's
Sure, I
happening.
could put in a bill dealing with film tax credits, let's say, or I can put in a bill dealing with
Marijuana.
or gaming.
Or gambling.
Or gambling. Yeah, I mean, it may not get very far, but I could put it in. Technically, I could. But anyway, they're gonna narrow it down to some of the major ideas they have, and more likely than not, coming to an agreement before they even gavel in and open the session. It'll take maybe 5 days, so that's enough time for public hearings, 3 readings in both sides. So about a week to get the work done.
So it's a bill that's introduced. So
Yeah.
same like a regular session. A
Yes.
bill gets introduced.
Yes.
And then it has to move through its process and then voted on. And
Introduction, refer
Can
to
they-
the committees, have public hearings.
So
Yeah.
can it be bills that were introduced this past session? Or does it have to be a special bill introduced for a special session?
Special session bills.
Okay.
So anything that occurred last session is the regular session. This is a special session, special set of bills. People get upset about the costs. The costs are really nominal because you already have the infrastructure in place right now. So the additional cost might be for some airline tickets for the neighbor islanders to fly in.
Yeah.
So that's about it. Maybe $25,000-$30,000 for 5 days, 7 days of work in a special session. Not much money when you think about it.
Okay, well, since we're talking about money, now let's jump into a subject that you're very familiar with, and this is really where we have to educate people. What's the difference between the general excise tax and the just regular income tax?
Yeah. Okay. So Hawaii is unusual of all the states because we have a general excise tax, and a general excise tax may appear to be like a sales tax. You get it when you go to Long's, or when you go to Macy's or go to Walmart, you get a sales slip, general excise tax, 4.167. But that general excise tax is tax imposed upon the business, the store, the service provider.
I pay a GE tax because I do some consulting work.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's based upon the employer or the provider of services. Covers both goods and services. So it's very broad based. And that's why in so many respects, it's a low amount of tax, 4% across the board. Versus a sales tax, like other states, like in California, you might have 7, 8, 9% sales tax, because that's based upon the sales, the transaction, and that's foisted upon the consumer.
So why do some people say that the GET is burdensome for families?
It can be burdensome because there's a multiplier effect that could go on from a wholesaler to a retailer, and then it ramps up from there. It's broad based, so it keeps us low, but it's broad based because it affects every man, woman, and child. There's no discrimination between a child purchasing a candy bar at 7-Eleven and an adult purchasing a candy bar at 7-Eleven. They're both going to be assessed the general excise tax.
And how does all this fold in? Because as you know, we are heavily dependent on tourism. So does it tie into tourism?
It does. It does. Really good question. So, let me finish this real quickly. So, about half the revenues of the state of Hawaii comes from your general excise tax. Okay, half. Maybe 35% comes from your personal income tax, and another 15% is from miscellaneous. And the miscellaneous would be like insurance tax, utilities pay a tax, banks pay a tax. There's also some highway assessments, motor vehicle tax. So that's where the other 15% comes from. But the bulk of it comes from personal income tax, the 35%. And of course, 50% is general excise tax. Tax Review Commission has studied the issue about how much of that burden is shifted to our visitors. And it's anywhere from 15 to 25% of the general excise tax is shifted to our visitors. So let's say we have 10 billion visitors a year. The 10 billion visitors, when they come here and when they go to Zippy's or they go to Costco or they go to Sam's Club or they go out to have a restaurant meal or they get massage services or surfing services, and there's a GET being generated, they pay for that. So we export that tax burden to our visitors. And they're happy to pay it, right? They don't see it, they see it low comparative to, sales tax. So they don't see or hear anything about it. But we export that. And that's a great benefit to the taxpayers of Hawaii, that we can export that, about 10% of our tax burden every year to our visitors. It's great.
That is such a good explanation. That is so, so good. So let's talk briefly because we're really running out of time.
Oh.
So Bible really pushes us, right, to talk about stewardship and to really be mindful of where our money is going. So, what message do you have for people of faith when it comes to budgeting and watching how our legislators are spending our money?
They have to be very mindful of the incredible responsibility that all of the 76 legislators there, and then add the governor, lieutenant governor after the budget is approved, to really be mindful of where the money is going to go. And I often would say the budget bill, in this case, House Bill 300, is really the heart and soul of the legislature. It's where its policies and its priorities are articulated and how they're going to be spending taxpayers' dollars, what services, what level of services for the people of Hawaii. So it's very important.
And that's what passed. I mean, the other conversation we have to have is the next budget that they're going to be working on, right? So then there is some work we have to do for that as well.
That's right. So in the even year, which would be in 2026, it's called a supplemental budget year. Supplemental budget year, it's supplementing the current budget, 2025. The additional monies or adjustments to the current appropriations made. That's where the people can get back involved and let the legislators know what they need to do.
That is so good. All right. Well, what we want you to do right now is, of course, as always, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know every time we upload a new video. But what I want you to do is take a moment right now. And if you have any questions about the budget, whether it's the federal budget or the state budget, put it in the comments and Marcus will answer it for you. If Marcus cannot answer the question, I know him. He'll do the research and he'll find the answer for you.
I promise.
So.
Yeah.
It's really, this is the time that the reason we do this show is because we want to hear what you're thinking and what you're feeling. So it's important that you plug into us and share this video with your friends, because it is important that the conversation about budgeting is something that's around every dinner table, because it's going to affect you one way or another. So stay plugged in, and we will see all of you next week. Mahalo, everybody.